Hello friends, my name is Martinez, and I don't know if I've ever talked about on this channel how I kind of plan my content and the fact that I do plan it. I'm usually pretty good about planning it out in advance and knowing which videos I want to make next. I typically have like a sheet of ideas that I'm just jotting down, and then I'll transfer those sheets into where I make my notes, and I usually have some sort of notes or bullet points or a script for my videos. I generally never read off the script when I'm making the videos, but I find that scripting it out or putting down my ideas helps me because once I have it kind of out of my head and onto the paper, it's easier for me to remember what I want to say, and then I have a reference to go back to and make sure that I hit all of the key points that I wanted to. Every once in a while I just come across something that I want to talk about a little bit more off the cuff, or something that I didn't really plan, and this video is really not planned, but I really want to talk about it because I find it super interesting, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that I'm not approaching this from a place where I'm being defensive or where I'm defending my actions, but I do want to talk about how I make certain decisions, basically. And I guess if you've seen the title of this video, you know that I'm talking about hate reading, or why I choose to read certain things if I have a strong suspicion that I will not like them. If I go into a book kind of already knowing that maybe this one will not be for me, why do I still read those things? And I think this is a really neat conversation because I think it says a lot about people's decision-making process, and especially when it comes to books, like how do you pick up the next thing you're going to read? How closely do you curate what you read? Are you only picking up things that you know or strongly suspect that you're going to like? Is that how you approach your reading? Or are you somebody more like me that casts a wider net? This, of course, came up recently for me, and it's something that I was talking about over on Twitter with people because I made the decision to read Sarah J. Maas's House of Earth and Blood. I keep getting confused. I'm pretty sure Crescent City is the name of the series. That's how it is on Goodreads, even though I keep calling this book Crescent City. I think it's House of Earth and Blood, and Crescent City is like the first book in Crescent City, something like that. So if you guys know anything about me or have watched this channel for any amount of time, you know that I do not like Sarah J. Maas's writing. Her writing really does not jive with me, and I've tried some other of her series. So I read Throne of Glass, the first book in that series, and that review was one of the earliest reviews on this channel, and it remains one of my most popular reviews on this channel. I gave that book 2 out of 5 stars. I just found that the characters were a little bit hollow, and I found that it set up this like huge premise of this assassin and these games, and it took the cheap way out of that in order to focus more on like the love triangle and the things that were a little more trite and less fleshed out. Plus it used some stereotypes for the minority characters in its book that really did not rub me the right way, and in general I didn't really like a lot of the characters the way that they were written. So I had like issues with that, but I also saw how readable it was, and so I understood a little bit more about why people kind of like breeze right through it and enjoy it, even though most of the action happens off screen. She jumps away from it. So I gave that 2 out of 5 stars, and I thought I was going to continue on with the series, but I went into the second book and was like, actually I'm done with this, so I stepped out of that. Then when she released A Court of Thorns and Roses, I decided to read that one because there was so much hype. People were saying that it was even better. I think at the time that it was released, it was very much being compared or talked about as a Beauty and the Beast sort of retelling. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I have to like do this. So I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I gave that 1 out of 5 stars. I hated it. I thought it was even worse than Throne of Glass, and her writing is even worse in that book. It is so repetitive. She abuses punctuation, and the way that she writes is so forced. She forces tone on her readers just because of the way that she interrupts herself and the way that she like loads her sentences in ways that is really just about trying to like hammer home this tone. On top of that, the alpha holes in that book are just, and like the sexual assault nature of like the steamiest scene in there was terrible. The villain was hollow and just completely like it did not fit. The villain did not have enough power to justify like all of the other power that she gave the characters in there, and the fact that they have like magical masks glued onto their faces, honestly, still LOL forever. So I tried to read the second one in that book. Actually, I have it here. I started this and it was super slow going because I actually started annotating it. I don't know if you can actually see that. So I was like pretty heavily annotating Yeah, see, I was even like doing like little check-ins with all of my feelings as I went through. I was highlighting every em dash. There were a lot of them. And she also has like other weird repetitions and things that she does. Like for instance, I was like highlighting and adding glitter to every time she used the word golden because it happened that many times. So it was a pretty intense project. And I even have like notes in here. See this one, oops, this one here says example of tone setting. So I had it here just kind of pointing one of these places where just the tone setting was so bad. Now looking at this, I got pretty damn far. How far did I get? I got up to page 259 of doing this project, and then I stopped. Of 626 pages, no, those are acknowledgements. 624 pages. So it felt like a lot, but now that I say it that way, you know, I didn't get very far. Even with that history, I decided to read this. So the full history here, and I don't know if people know this, because what happened was that I picked it up and I started reading, and I immediately took to Twitter because the first thing that was on the first page that I was like, oh dear God, was an em dash. So I immediately was like, LOL, look at this on Twitter, and then kept tweeting out my thoughts. I did not buy this with the intention of live tweeting. We actually bought it as the book club book of the month for House Salt. House Salt is a book club that I have. Like, we do a live show every month. We started in January of 2020, so we've done 2 so far, and we were like, okay, let's read Crescent City because it's like a huge release that's coming out in March. Some of us in this book club love Sarah J Maas and some of us don't, so we thought it would be like a really neat balance and that we would be able to all like be in the thick of everybody talking about this, because obviously it was going to be a huge release. So that's why my original intention was of reading this, which again, that, you know, just sharing that with you guys so that you know kind of how I went into it. But the fact that we decided to not read this, some people were like at last minute, you know what, no, we're actually reading Chain of Gold for March, so everybody felt a little bit better about reading that large release instead. But I had pre-ordered the book because of this book club, so I was like, you know what, let's F it, let's read it. So I took to Twitter and I made an update on Goodreads, and then that kind of started some feedback, not a ton. And truly, part of the reason that this isn't like me defending my actions, hopefully, I keep, you know, I've just spent this entire first part of this explaining my actions, but I know the people who are going to watch this are people who are supporting my channel and who enjoy my content. So I know that you guys know me, and I know that you guys know my content, and I know that you know my style, and that for the most part, everybody who watches this and comments is so supportive of my content and of this community in general. So like, I don't want to feel like I'm reaching out to like get a pat on the back or preaching to the choir, because for the most part, people were like excited. They were like, oh, you're going to give it another chance. Cool. But I received a few comments that just really started making me think, and not because they were upset that I was being critical of something that they love, because that I understand. It's like when I go on Goodreads and I see that like Pride and Prejudice, somebody has given it like a 2-star rating and then has given Twilight like 5 stars, like that kind of thing. I'm like, oh my God, I understand like feeling defensive about something that you love. And not only that you love, but something like Pride and Prejudice for me is something that is like now formative and foundational, because I've read it for I don't know, the last 18 years of my life. I've been reading this book, so I love it so much to a point where I can see being defensive if somebody's like, that's actually a terrible book. Like, you know, I get that. I totally get that. So if from that perspective, I understand why people get annoyed or get upset, even if they don't know how to differentiate, like being upset that this is like hurting their feelings from being upset at me for not liking something that they like. So all of that is super tricky to navigate, and I understand. But the way that the comments were phrased, it was all about being really upset that I was choosing to hate read, or choosing to read something that I knew or had a strong suspicion going into that I wouldn't enjoy. And so I started thinking about this, because for me, it's like, I don't understand why that would bother somebody else, especially because I paid for this. Like, I paid $17 for this book, 17 American dollars for this book. And so I supported Sarah J Maas. She's on #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and I contributed to that. So I'm like not hurting Sarah J Maas at all. And even when I post my review, whether it's 1, 2, 3 stars or whatever, I'm not hurting Sarah J. Maas, and I know that. Like, I know that my 11,000 subscribers on YouTube or whatever it is like, if I tell you guys that this is a 1-star book, that's really affecting her in a very minimal to like nothing kind of place. I've already given her my $17, and also, if a few of you decide not to read it because of my review, you know, again, very minimal, but also she's such an established author at this point that I don't think that my review is like news to anybody, I would say. Like, maybe if I gave it 5 stars, some of you would be like, well, damn, maybe I'll check it out now. But again, not hurting Sarah J. Maas. I'm not tagging her in anything. I've never spoken to the woman. Like, I've never seen her at, you know, at events or live or anything. She's literally living her happy life without me and without ever noticing me, and that's great for her. And so it was so much fun to kind of like talk this out with people, because I think that we went in so many different directions that feed directly into this. So one is that idea of it can be very difficult to see negative reviews of something that you love deeply, or an author that you love or whatnot. You know, when you love something to that level that it feels also like part of you, it can be hard to differentiate when a negative review is just about a work, when it sometimes feels like a personal attack. And I think in a lot of ways social media kind of aggravates this, in the sense that my friend Nicole made a very good point about how, like, even though I'm making these updates on my own Twitter feed, you know, like on my own personal things, like I'm not adding anyone, it can feel to people like I'm being in their face about something, just because of the nature of like feeds and social media. So I'm in my room, in my house, in my own house, like yelling these things out, but because of the nature of social media and like, I guess the nature of my critical reviews, it can feel to people, I guess, that I'm like knocking on their door with my feedback. So that's one element of it, I think, just kind of how you receive and process critical reviews of something that you love. I think the other element of it is something that I alluded to before, and it's that we all choose what to read and we curate our own reading in very different ways. So there are some people who always go into books without knowing anything about them. Like, they rarely, if ever, read the back of the book and just need like few keywords to go in, where that's, I think, one extreme, where you have someone like me who doesn't care about spoilers, sometimes actively seeks out spoilers in order to really inform if I want to finish reading something, if I want to pick something up. Like, spoilers help me in a lot of ways, and I know that that's not the case for everybody, so that's like another extreme. There are people who try to only read things that they know that they're gonna love, and it accounts for why they give a lot of positive or 4 or 5 star reviews, because they curate what they read so strongly, and they're just leaning towards things that they feel are going to tick off certain boxes for them. I do not curate my reading that way. Like I said, I cast a wider net, especially because so many times books surprise me, and I never really count myself out for what a book might bring to me. And it's happened to me so many times where I think I will love a book and I don't, or I think I won't like a book and I do, or things of that. And those experiences are really rewarding for me when I discover a favorite where I wasn't expecting it. But I can only have that experience if I'm picking up books that I'm not certain I will like. So when it was like, why would you choose to read this thing if you probably won't like it? It was a very like interesting question to me, because it was like, why not? I don't get what the problem is. The third part of that, and it feeds into this, I think, directly, but it's this idea that you only get something out of a book if you enjoy it. Like, there is only a positive experience there if you are enjoying a book. That if you are hate reading a book, or if you are reading a book and you end up not liking it, that you've somehow wasted your time or energy or something like that. And that may be true for some people, that, you know, you only really feel good about your experience, or you get something out of the experience if you enjoy a book. But that isn't true for me. I get so much out of reading a book that whether I like it or dislike it is only one part of that. I get a lot out of breaking down a book and deciding why I liked it or disliked it. Like, that process is exciting to me. That's part of reading for me, is trying to form my ideas and look at what all of the pieces of the books were and trying to really give words to that, because the other part of why I enjoy like all of this is that I enjoy creating content around it. So even though if I didn't like a book, if I can create something, a review, or talk to people about it, or anything that has to do with that book, I will enjoy that experience of talking about it or reviewing it, even if I didn't enjoy the book, and that is still worth something to me. I feel like every book that I read really helps me like refine my taste, I guess you would say, or it really helps me develop like my vocabulary and my system and my measures for the things that I do like. Even when I see something that I think is not good, like I don't know if I had ever talked about the number of M dashes in a book ever in my life until I read a Sarah J Maas book. Like, I don't know if anything had opened my eyes to like the use and function of punctuation until I saw it abused the way that she did in ACOTAR and ACOMAF. So that experience, I don't know, I feel like it taught me something, and it is something that I value, even though if I did not enjoy the book. I think it just goes back to this idea of the different ways that we read and the different ways that we process and the different things that we get out of a book. I think that there also can be something entertaining in watching or reading or experiencing something that is bad. We all do it. I feel like we all do it. I feel like we all talk about, you know, people say guilty pleasures, which I don't really believe in. We call them trash pockets over on Snark Squad Pod. So the things that are like trashy but are so in your wheelhouse that that is your trash pocket. The most recent one that I was talking about was the Fast and the Furious franchise. Like, are they cinematic masterpieces? No. Is it firmly in my trash pocket? Yes. The other interesting part of it to me is that, you know, I sometimes, in those like few and rare, admittedly, comments that I get that are kind of like questioning me and my content, people often start to like say that I'm doing this specifically like for views and likes, or that there is like this like section of BookTube that really focuses on bad things or negative reviews in order just to gain likes or views or to grow their channel or whatnot. I think it's so interesting because of the way, I've talked about this before, but the pendulum has kind of swung, and it goes in waves and ebbs and flows sort of in the community. When I started, I felt like literally nobody was doing negative reviews at all. At least that's the way I felt. I hadn't really found people that had a sort of similar reviewing style to me at that point, but also I felt like there was this like almost like taboo about talking bad about books. And so we've gotten to a place now where people feel that there are certain areas of BookTube that can be too negative, or that are just doing it specifically because this content gets views and likes. And it's interesting to me for two reasons. One is that like I read 70 to 100 books in a year, and like last year I read 100 books and I gave like 3 or 4 or 5 of them 1 stars. So the fact that people like can just be like, because I picked up 1 Sarah J Maas book. I've read 20 books this year and I pick up 1 Sarah J Maas book, and they're like, awful, you're a terrible person. I don't know, whatever they're thinking. I'm just like, this is a little, do you know me? I don't think you know me. And then like I also like apply the same critical style to everything that I read. So it's not like I'm like, you have no feelings about anything I read, but I'm gonna crap on Sarah J Maas. But whatever. The other thing about this is I have reviews on this channel that are positive and negative, and for sure 100% my negative reviews are my most viewed videos, but I'm not watching those videos. Like I'm not doing that to myself. I have all kinds of content on this channel. I'm not making my popular content my popular content. So I don't know what to say to that. And I mean the entire idea that people do things for views or for likes, you know, it's such a like looked down upon thing. But I don't know, we're making content. We're making content. Of course we want things to be viewed and well received and liked, and it's YouTube. There's a certain amount of like, there is a way to succeed on this platform that is kind of like beyond all of us, and every once in a while people will just start to get like really focused on like, oh, can't believe you light your videos well. don't know. I don't know. It's just really strange, I think, that concept of like, you're only doing it for the content. Yes, welcome. I'm on a public platform. I'm not doing this for my cat. Okay, this did kind of end up being a defense of why I'm reading Crescent City. You know, I just, parts of this boggle the mind. I don't feel like I owe anybody my critical or negative reviews. I don't feel like I'm out here doing a service for anybody or to anybody. I genuinely enjoy taking apart media. I genuinely enjoy doing this. I genuinely enjoy creating content. I genuinely get stuff out of any media experience that I have, whether good or bad or indifferent. If I can then sit back and think about what makes those things good, bad, or indifferent, then I feel like I'm getting something out of that experience. Even before this YouTube channel, you know, we started snarksquad.com as a place where we were talking about the books that we read as children. And we were taking a step back and thinking about, you know, approaching it from this place of like, we used to like this, but now we've grown. We're grown-ups, we're adults. And, you know, not only that, but we've grown as media consumers. So what if we took another look at this and we really dissected it? Like, what would we find there? And that's how Snark Squad was born. And of course that grew into like taking on TV things. And then it grew to taking on things that are super popular and have mass appeal. What if we took like super popular things like 50 Shades of Grey and we really paid attention to what it was doing and what it was saying? What would we find there? And what we found there was a whole heck of a lot, but also like community and enjoyment and an opportunity to find humor in being critical. I totally understand why that approach to media is not for everybody. It's the reverse of that, of like why others don't, I don't know, understand people that experience media this way, or why people get so upset at me that I paid $17 to maybe read a bad book. So that this isn't entirely just a defense. I'm really interested in talking to you guys about this. I'm interested in talking about how you curate your reading. How much are you picking up things that you believe you will enjoy? And to what degree? Like, are you only picking up books you think you will love? Or is there like some middle ground there? Like, if you read a 3-star rating from a reviewer that you trust, if you read a 3-star review, is that still a book that you will go in with what certain level of in good faith? Like, how are you approaching that book? Are you somebody that, you know, only really feels like you're getting something out of a work if you enjoy it? Or what are some of the other things that you get out of a work that you don't enjoy? And is it a difference if I pick up a book and I'm surprised that I don't like it, or if I pick up a book and I have a general idea that I won't like it? And what really is the difference there at the end of the day? Especially because all of this is like guesswork. We never know what we will feel about a book or what we will find in a book until we get there. And to be perfectly honest, I've read the first 5 or 6 chapters of Crescent City, and it is by far better than either Throne of Glass or ACOTAR or Akamath. It is, I mean, there are some things about the world building that are leaving something to be desired, but the setup of this is like genuinely, it has a lot of potential. The main character, the introduction to the main character and like her friendship is really genuinely interesting. Like, I don't know, is this gonna be my new favorite book? Probably not. And that's nobody's business, I guess, but my own. Truly, come talk to me down in the comments about this. I am so interested in how you approach all of these things. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned to see how much of this I get through, the review that will no doubt come. I will see you guys soon. I'm literally reading through these comments and cracking myself up. This just says, nothing is happening. Oh, good. You guys, wait. I recapped part 1. Damn, I wish you guys could really see this. I'm even writing like Sarah J. Maas. What ... is ... happening?